Last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Nice,
as simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm Angie, and today we are diving into habits. Habits are those things that we do repetitively, good or bad, and sometimes they can literally sabotage our well-being. And that's why I want to tackle the topic of habits, because there are things that we can do to break bad habits, and there are things we can do to build good habits. So let me ask you, do you have one habit that you would love to kick and one habit that you wish you could build and maintain in your life? So, on a personal level, I know I've always had this habit of saying bad words, and I've tried to stop, but it doesn't last for long until the next time I just need to say a bad word. I've also tried to stop cracking my knuckles, and that one lasts until it doesn't. And I've tried to stop getting spicy with people when I drive. But the trick with that one, I did find an answer. I now listen to audiobooks instead of blasting music that jolts my nervous system into overdrive. So that is my secret sauce to driving without spice if you want to steal it. So I have had some habits that don't serve me, and I've had many that do. So another one that I've kind of conquered recently is dealing with kind of this low-level anxiety. So a lot of times I do this thing where I just shake my whole body like my dog does, or I take a walk, or I do a grounding exercise. All those work because now they're wired into my system. So the thing is that they didn't get there by accident. And that's the thing with habits. They kind of creep into our lives without us really realizing that we're building a habit. And so to blast it out of our lives is a whole different story. So let's unpack the science and let's talk about why it's hard to change habits and how to actually make habits stick. You know, first of all, how easy it is to scroll on your phone without thinking, right? Which is a habit. But how hard it is then to talk yourself into a workout, which really, if you think about it, is another habit. So here's some science. Research from Trinity College in Dublin shows that your brain runs on two systems. You have an automatic system that takes over when you're on autopilot, like your phone scrolling, where you're just on autopilot. And then you have a goal-directed system that helps you act with intention, which if you really think about it, that's like your commitment to exercise. That's your intentional, goal-driven system. But when autopilot wins, like when boredom leads you to start, mindless scrolling on your phone, you're not actually failing. You're just defaulting to whatever is easiest on your brain. Because again, we have that automatic system, we have the goal-driven system. So if we were to go a little bit deeper into this, the National Institutes on Health, they explain that both good and bad habits rely on the same brain machinery, if you will. But pleasure-based habits, think like junk food, okay, chocolate, social media, gambling, all that kind of pleasure-based stuff that we get addicted to, those are harder to break because they spike dopamine, which is your brain's feel-good chemical. So again, you've got this automatic system, this goal-driven system, and we know that habits go on the same brain machinery, but at the bottom line is that those feel-good habits that don't serve us, those can really spike our dopamine, which then we kind of want more of it. So Johns Hopkins research confirms that just seeing something that's associated with reward can flood your brain with dopamine, even when you're not aware of it. So let me give you an example, your phone. you get these dopamine hits from notifications like, oh, my partner texted me, or oh, my friend wants to do something tonight, or you get somebody messaging you on Instagram. So you get this dopamine hit from the notification. And so now you're seeing your phone. Now, just seeing your phone, even when it's silent, is going to trigger dopamine and draw your attention. It's like you want to get it because you want another hit of dopamine. Same thing with like junk food. If you walk past the candy aisle, it triggers dopamine because your brain remembers sugar. And even if you're not hungry, your brain is like, but you love that. You know, you love sugar. The scary, the thing about it is that our brains are just kind of hijacked. It's below consciousness, and that's why willpower just really doesn't work. So there's a Stanford psychiatrist, Dr. Anna Lemke, and she explains that repeated exposure to high dopamine activities actually messes with your internal balance. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. What she's really saying is that you start needing more of something to sort of get back to your baseline, to feel, quote, normal. So the habit becomes less about feeling good and more about avoiding discomfort, right? So you kind of need a little bit more. You know that with any addiction, it starts out with a little bit until a little bit no longer works. And then to get back to normal, you need a little bit more until it no longer works. Then you need a little bit more. And then it's not even so much about feeling good. It's just about not feeling bad. So I'll use social media as an example, because when I read this, I was like, I need some examples to really make sense of this. So let's say on social media, it's week 1, you get 10 likes on a post, you get a little bit of a dopamine hit, you feel good. You're like, "Ooh, I've never gotten 10 likes." But now the bar is raised. Now, pretty soon you need 50 likes to get that same feel good feeling. And if you only get 10, now you actually feel disappointed, like, oh, I wonder why this post didn't perform so well. I wonder why people didn't like this post. And then pretty soon 50 feels like a disappointment. And so it goes, and so it goes. And then pretty soon you're not even posting for the high. You're posting because you don't want to feel bad. You just need to feel, quote, normal. You need to get that dopamine hit from people saying, I love your stuff. I love your stuff. So then the habit goes from pleasure seeking to discomfort avoiding, if you will. So this is what Dr. Lemke means when she says the pleasure pain balance kind of gets hijacked, right? So basically, your brain's normal setting has to keep going to a higher level. It has to keep going above baseline. But here's the kicker: every addictive behavior boosts dopamine, but over time, our pleasure circuits can sometimes dull. So you get less reward, but more compelled to do it because you get a little bit dulled by that sensation. I was thinking about this. We have someone in our family who used to have an addiction. And so he kicked that addiction. And then I started noticing a lot of buying behaviors, if you will. There's the big boat, and then the big red truck, and then there's this, and there's that, and there's a lot more buying behaviors. And a lot of times that is feeding the addiction, if you will, looking for that next dopamine hit. Okay, I can't have this, so that pleasure center needs to be satisfied. But the thing is that all that said, here's the empowering part. You can rewire all of this. With strategy and time and effort, you can rewire all of that. And I've got some simple strategies to help you. These are the kind that I like. Simple, easy to implement strategies, because I think that life is complicated enough. So how do you rewire your brain so that you get things to consciousness and you're not just going for that next dopamine hit? So instead of relying on just willpower, I want you to think about some of these science-backed strategies and see if any of them speak to you. First and foremost, it might sound super simple, but you have to claim it to tame it. You can't change what you're not aware of. So if there is a habit that you even suspect is not serving you, or people have called you out on it, or hey, you got less money to spend, or less time in your day, and you notice that you're on Instagram for 2 hours, the first thing is you got to claim it to tame it. So you maybe start tracking how often you engage in the habit. Because if you've ever pointed out to somebody else a bad habit, the first thing you're going to hear is a lot of defense and denial. And your brain's going to do the same thing to you. Oh, I'm not on social media that much. Well, what if you start tracking how often you're actually on it and how long you stay on it? I bet you would be shocked. And I keep using social media, but it could be anything. It could be cracking your knuckles. It could be swearing. It could be hitting the snooze button 20 times in the morning. So whether you make a tally for every time or you put it a dime in a jar or whatever you decide to do, bottom line, self-control is like a muscle. So it gets stronger every time we use it. So every tally is going to build your awareness. And that means that right there is your first step in kind of changing the behavior. Another thing that we can do outside of willpower to break habits is to focus on our personal why. And the thing is that a lot of times we just focus on why that habit is bad. Like, oh, if I crack my knuckles, then my knuckles get really big and they look really fugly. Okay, well, that's one thing, yes, but it's more about, but why do I really want to change that? So some questions to ask yourself when you really focus on your personal why is, how is it sabotaging your life? So I have to tell you something. This is exactly when I haven't stopped swearing. This is between you and me. It's because I can't come up with a reason why swearing is sabotaging my life. I mean, come on, let's get real. Somebody somewhere along the way decided that the sh word was a bad word or whatever it might be. And so my logical brain says, what if I decide it's not? So the thing is, you have to focus on why you want to change it. So number one, how is this sabotaging your life? Number two, how would your life improve without it? So if you think about social media scrolling, so much more time, so much less wasted emotional energy. And then you could also ask yourself, where will you be in a year if you kick this habit? So maybe the habit is I eat, a huge bowl of ice cream at night. And then I don't sleep very well because I get a bellyache or whatever it might be. And so how is this sabotaging your life? How would your life improve without it? And where will you be in a year if it's gone? So at the bottom, at the end of the day, research says that personal relevance is what makes a habit stick. It's not because somebody else told you you should change a habit. The third tip that I have is about replacement and not removal. None of us like restriction. Our brain does not function on restriction. None of us like to be told we can't have something anymore or that we can't do something. James Clear said it best in his book. He said, replacement beats restriction. If we can replace the habit, a better habit with a worse habit, then that does beat restriction. So if you want to stop eating chips, replace them with, something crunchy. For me, I'm not a big chip eater, but I love nuts. So that would be a replacement. It's crunchy, or maybe an apple because it's crunchy. Some people even have used ice chips because it's crunchy. So a 2024 body of research shows that when you introduce a replacement, your brain builds new competing pathways. So it's far more effective than trying to quit cold turkey. So what I have done when I want to crack my knuckles is I got my little fidget toy. Seriously, I found this in my daughter's old drawer from when she was a kid. And I was like, this is amazing. A, it's good for anxiety. And B, it helps me not to crack my knuckles. So a fourth strategy is to use implementation intentions. So what this really means is it's an if-then scenario. If this happens, then this will happen. So I'll give you an example. If I want to check my phone, then I'll go for a 10-minute walk. If I reach for junk food, I'll grab an apple. It's just an if-then. So one study showed that 91% of people who used if-then plans reached their goals compared to 39% who didn't. So people, when they tell me they're going to go cold turkey, especially when they have an addiction, it just doesn't work. There has to be a replacement behavior. Usually cigarette smokers have to have a replacement behavior. They have to have the gum or they have to have something else. A lot of times with addiction, again, it could turn into buying, but I mean, usually better than addiction, right? Like a substance that could kill you. So the thing is that you're bypassing willpower because forget about willpower and you're pre-programming success. It also this reminded me of something that I think every parent could relate to if you think about the if-then plans. When my girls were little, I would say things like, if I take you to the store and you're good, then I'll take you to the movies later. So it sets them up for success and it builds a habit. Okay, if I'm good at the store, there will be a reward. There will be a then later. It could be if you're good at the store, then I'll take you to the park, something like that. And usually I would build it into something I was going to do with them anyway, but I used it as an incentivizing reward. So another tip for kind of forgetting about willpower, but being able to break bad habits is design your environment. Probably all of us know this, but out of sight, out of mind. So, my husband's a huge junk food eater. Thank goodness I don't like chips because they're always bang, eye level. We eat different kind of chocolate, so that doesn't tempt me either. But there are certain things that he'll buy. I'll have to give you one. Pop-Tarts. Sometimes when I open up the pantry and I see a Pop-Tart, I'm like, oh my God, I really want a Pop-Tart. And so I move it to the top shelf in the very back where I'm not going to be as tempted because I'm not going to open at the pantry and see the Pop-Tart right away. The bottom line is your environment should support your success. It shouldn't sabotage it. So if you're trying to get rid of something, don't put it at eye level. Don't put it where it's tempting you. And then last but not least, ditch all or nothing thinking. This is so key when it comes to habits. You are going to slip up. Habits are hard to break. Okay. Isn't there a song? You're a hard habit to break. Okay. Habits are hard to break. That's normal. So we don't want to throw out the whole plan because we got off one day. If you go a week without sugar and then you have cake, try to celebrate the week, not the slip. How often do we do this to ourselves, right? We're like, well, I slipped up, so I guess it's just hopeless. But really, it's more about what did you do? You went a whole entire week without having sugar and then you had cake. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, usually, again, restriction doesn't work. So for a while, you might use replacement and then there might be a huge birthday party. And guess what? Cake's pretty darn good. So why not? Right. But before we go any further, I think that if I was to talk about habits with you and only talk about the science and then tell you how to break bad habits, I feel like that would be a huge miss. Because at the end of the day, what builds positivity in our life is building in positive habits. So I don't think we should talk about habits unless we talk about good habits that can transform your life. So, those positive ones that make you feel good about being you. So, what's a positive habit that you have in your life? I know you've got some, right? I found my little fidget toy. I found my Audible books so that I don't get spicy with people on the road. But here's some tips to kind of help you build some positive habits. If in fact you're thinking, I need to get some more good stuff into my life. And a lot of times when I'm working with clients, both in mental health and in fitness, I say to them, what if we focus on building good habits before we focus on breaking bad ones? Because what I really want is their focus to be positive. And usually if you build enough good habits in, the bad ones are easy to break. Right. So I was told about 6 months ago, I need to stop drinking so much coffee because I was getting really bad headaches. I was like, wait, what? No. And so I found that if I get up and I drink a glass of water before I go for my coffee, I'm more hydrated, I'm more alert. And my brain realizes you don't actually need all that coffee, Angie. You don't have to suck down a whole pot of coffee. Not that I was, but probably I was over consuming. So that's what I mean. If the person who told me this, if the neurologist who told me this had just said, instead of saying stop drinking coffee, if he had given me that tip, I would have been like, game on. But I kind of thought of that tip myself and it worked. So here's some ways to build positive habits. Number one, lock in morning and evening routines. And I talked about this on a podcast a couple of years ago. I did a couple of episodes on habits. First, I did one on breaking bad habits and then I did one on building them. And I wanted to bring this back to you because there's new research. And I just think that habits are such a part of how we get through life, if you will. So lock in morning and evening routines. So that means waking up at the same time every day. It supports your circadian rhythms. It primes you for success. Evening routines, making tomorrow's to-do list, packing your bag for the next day, picking out your clothes, putting a notebook by your bed for evening, for nighttime thoughts. These are all the things that I do. I am not a hit the snooze button person. I become a little bit more that way. I'm starting to build that bad habit. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I've never been a snooze button girl. I got to stop that. And so, but some of these things have really, really worked for me, especially the picking out my outfits thing when I wasn't working remote. It would take me forever to pick out an outfit. I found if I did it the night before, it saved so much morning stress. So another one is go device free at the bookend. So in other words, when you wake up and before you go to bed. So start with 10 minutes. It can stabilize your nervous system. Maybe you can make it up to 30, but I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. Just go device free a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. Keep building that time in so that you start your day off fresh and you don't start your day getting sucked into other people's lives or how many likes did I get on that post that I put up last night. A third thing that you can do to build positive habits is to set a daily implementation intention. So this again would be using the if then strategy. So if I start to feel anxious today, no worries, brain. I've got a plan. Then I'll do a grounding exercise. If I feel stressed today, no worries, brain. I've got this. Then I'll take 5 deep breaths. So these micro decisions can create macro changes. Another tip that I have, if you really want to build these positive habits, is take a quick movement break every hour. And we tell our clients this, but I think we forget it a lot of times because research shows that even brief movement bursts increase dopamine. It also improves our focus and it reduces our stress hormones. So set a timer every hour, get up, stand, stretch, walk, and your brain is going to thank you because you're going to have a clearer focus. Another tip to kind of, build these positive habits is beat procrastination with a 1 hour rule. Coming from somebody who is an expert procrastinator, not proud of it, and who could write a book on it, the 1 hour rule makes a big difference. So I tell myself, you know what, Angie, just put in an hour. And usually once I do that hour, I've got momentum. My brain fog clears up. And I'm not in that fear-based state anymore. I'm not in that, oh, I'm so anxious, I don't even know how to get started. And then last but not least, for positive habits, just live by a schedule. I plan my weeks out on Sunday. I know what my week's going to look like. Think of your time like this big pie, and you've got to put a little bit. What are you doing for your brain, your intellectual side? What are you doing for your emotional side? Are you going to get together with friends? Well, that would be social and emotional. What are you doing for your physical side? What are you doing for your spiritual? Okay. So a balanced schedule is going to reduce stress and it's going to build resilience. Just remember as you are approaching habit change, give yourself some grace because habits don't change fast, right? Self-chosen habits, though, are going to stick better. So if they come from you and they're about you, they're going to stick better. We can't change someone else's habits. And then there's research that says that morning habits form faster and that identity aligned habits are more sustainable. So if you're trying to build a habit that's outside of your value system, honestly, it's probably not going to work, right? So I guess the key here is instead of asking yourself, oh, how long is this going to take? Ask whether or not that habit is aligned with who you want to be. So, right. So with people with exercise, instead of like, how long is it going to take for this to become a habit, for me to actually get up and build exercise into my daily routine, maybe just ask your clients, well, how well is it aligned with who you want to be? Like, what do you want your life to look like a year from now? And if you were to exercise or move your body, how do you think things would be different? These are really questions that are grounded in motivational interviewing, and they tie into habits. So here's my challenge to you. I hope that you can make good on this episode. Pick one habit that you really want to break and one habit that you want to build. And think about starting with one. I would just start with one this week. So if it's breaking, then, with the bad habit, let's say if I want to crack my knuckles, then I'll play with my fidget toy. If it's building, then it could be something as simple as if I go 30 minutes in the morning without my phone, then I can use that time to take a walk and I can clear my head for the day. And you could even put another one in there, another caveat with it then. You could say, and then at lunchtime, I can scroll, something of that nature. Just be consistent, right? Because consistency is safety. Consistency is safety to other people. That's my favorite saying, consistency is safety, but also consistency is safety to you. You will trust you if you stick to the habits that you're trying to build. Okay. So thanks for joining me today on Strong Mind, Strong Body. I appreciate you chatting with me about habits. Keep emailing me your thoughts about what you want to hear about, your feedback on the show. I love to hear from you. And until next time, I hope you keep building habits that serve the strongest, healthiest version of you.